We're live, all the way live. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to this talk. I'm really excited to give this talk to you today. And I've been thinking about the material that we're going to go over today for a good 5 or 6 years. So what we're going to be talking about today are how to handle difficult conversations, emotional conversations, conversations where it seems like everything is geared to make that conversation go awry. I don't know why I wrote so much text here on my slides. This is my ramp up slide. I'm trying to get into this. So it's about a kind of conversation that we're going to call for the rest of this talk a crucial conversation. What is a crucial conversation? A crucial conversation is when tempers flare, the stakes are high, and perspectives differ. Your reality is not the same as the person on the other side. So we'll talk about the tools for how to engage in those conversations, and because I'm a developer, I'm probably not going to be able to avoid bringing in developer speak about diagnosing, debugging, and bug fixing your conversations. So, forewarned. Most of the content that we're going to be covering today is actually covered much better in this book, Crucial Conversations, by Joseph Grenny, Al Switzer, Carrie Patterson, and Ron McMillan. It's a great read. You can pick it up in the morning and probably finish it in a day. I finished it in a day and a half, and I'm not the fastest reader. But ever since reading this book, I try to come back to it at least once a year. This is me. My name's Chris Weber. I'm a Drupal enthusiast. You can find me on Drupal.org as Cosmic Dreams. I have been I reached my 10-year Drupalversary last year, and I have had my fair share of crucial conversations. I love being part of the Drupal community. The thing that I love about it most is Sprint Day. This is a picture from Sprint Day of the last DrupalCon. It's a wonderful opportunity to connect with other people and to get out of yourself and see what the perspectives of people who are have been using Drupal a long time, longer than me, or brand new to Drupal, to gain a little bit of empathy about where they're coming from. So, start with something a little personal. My crucial conversation. 6 years ago, I was working for myself. I started a company with a buddy of mine, and I was really struggling. We seem to have been working every minute of every day, trying to put everything we can into getting projects done or by the deadlines. It just didn't seem to be working. We tried to diagnose what the problem was. We were disorganized. We were just we didn't really have a good plan. We were just two contractors trying to find work. I was the person who did most of the development. He was the one that did most of the sales. And we even brought in a project manager at one point to try to help us find the organization that we lacked, but it still wasn't working. It still felt like I was pouring everything into fixing this, and then I came to the conclusion that maybe it can't be fixed. Maybe the problem is me. Maybe I'm just not a good enough developer. Maybe I need to know how to develop things better. This is where my head was at. And so I came to the conclusion that I needed to go somewhere to find out how to be a developer that could handle the level of challenges that we were being thrown. But this was my best friend. We started this company together. His family's financial security is connected to my ability to deliver work. I didn't know how to tell him that I wanted to move on. So I let it sit for about a year. And it wasn't until I found the book, Crucial Conversations, that I realized that was what I was doing, that I suppressed this need to move on, and I wasn't dealing with it. I was running from my problem. And through the process that I read through the book, I was able to first come to terms with that, and then figure out a way to have that very difficult conversation. We'll revisit it at the end. Let me show you where we're headed today. First, we're going to talk about how we get stuck and how we can unstuck yourself, how we can get ourselves unstuck. I think I purposely grammatically made that wrong. And then we're going to talk about how to come from a place of empathy, how to start with heart. And then we're going to talk about how to look within the conversation, not just within yourself, but with what's going on the other side and how to make it better. But most importantly, we're going to talk about how to make it safe, how to make it safe for everyone to contribute. And if we got time, we're going to talk about mastering your stories. I don't want to unpack that one just yet. So first, why do we get stuck? Perhaps it's nature. Perhaps we haven't really evolved too far beyond our cave-dwelling ancestors. Perhaps we're still just cave people, willing to react to threats and stimulus instead of thinking through our reactions. When we don't have to fend off physical threats. We're not concerned about a saber-toothed tiger running into our cave. But there are threats. So you can see it all the time when everyone tries to talk about the big three: politics, religion. What's the other one? Software choice. That you are presented with a bit of information that threatens your perception of reality and therefore threatens what is called, what we're going to call for the rest of this talk, psychological safety. Being safe within your own mind and your own reality. So when we're presented with threats, our inner cave person, or if you prefer the reptilian brain, just reacts. But there's more that is happening. The adrenaline, the testosterone, the hormones, all these things actually work to shut down your rational brain. So you're already gimped here. You're already have an arm behind your back. You have all these things preventing you from having a rational conversation, and you need a way to jumpstart your brain, the rational part of your brain, back up so that you can engage in a productive conversation. This is our typical response whenever most of us, if you think back to some of the failed conversations you've had, you can probably see this come true, that whenever we're presented with a threat, we either go to silence, we try to disengage, we try to run away, we flee from conflict, or we are prone to violence. We shout down the other person, we dominate the conversation with our words instead of their words, that are the only words that are being accepted within the conversation. What we're looking for is somewhere in the middle, a productive dialogue. We're both engaging, we're both sharing information. So when our emotions take over, how do we get back towards a productive conversation? I don't think I'm there yet. Ask yourself, is this a crucial conversation? Are the stakes high? Are my emotions elevated? Have I started to focus more on winning the conversation more than actually trying to find out the answers to my questions or the results of the conversation? Getting to a productive conversation is not impossible. You just have to get your brain out of this chemical bath by asking, by starting with heart. This is the term in the book, start with heart. The first aha moment that I had in the book was the realization that I was doing this, that I was a fleer. Whenever I find myself procrastinating, whenever I find myself trying to avoid a difficult part of the project, that is just my natural style under stress. That the thing that I need to do is scaring me so much that I just, I'm convincing myself I need more time. I need to step away and come at it fresh. And so even today, when I find myself doing that, I remind myself that this is what you do, Chris, and to try to find a way to get back into the process. So it's important to know that we're not like Pixar's Inside Out. We don't have this control box in front of us where we can just press a button and then all of a sudden we're back to being a rational person. There's a process that you have to go through. The first step is asking, what do I really want? Do I want to be late to my deadline? Do I want to discover the things that I'm not knowing about this problem? And just by asking that question, you're engaging the rational part of your brain. You're saying to the emotional parts of the brain, it's like, that's nice, but I'm not talking to you right now. I want to talk to the rational side. Could you please be quiet? So ground yourself with this question, and also ask. Also, turn your logger on. Start logging the different thoughts and feelings and intentions that you have. What is the overriding intention? Is your intention to be the baddest person in the block? Is your intention to make them feel as bad as they have made you feel? Or is there a more noble thing that you could pursue, like actually getting to the root of the problem, solving it, and then let's move on? Also be aware of the fool's choice. As you consider what you want, notice that when you have talked yourself into the fool's choice, of course I've got to yell back at them because that's the only thing they listen to. Of course I'm going to not talk to my boss that I should fill my timesheet on time because then I'll get into trouble and then I don't want that. That's never happened, Rob. Switch the or. I can't, of course I need to talk to them because that's the only thing they understand, or Rob might be mad at me. Switch to an and. Find a way to talk it through and get the result that you want. And also ask yourself, not just what do I really want, but what do I really want for others? What do I really want for the relationship that we have? Clarify to yourself inside your head what you don't want, and keep that in mind. All these questions trigger the rational side of your brain. And now that you've got your logger on and you're auditing your intentions, your feelings, your interactions, extend your logger to also be logging what's going on the other side. Look for conditions that might make the conversation unsafe. Watch for exceptions. Try to find all the warnings that they have started to shut down, that they have moved to silence or violence, that they're starting to dominate the conversation. They're starting to just clam up because they don't want to say anything to trigger you. And watch out for when their emotions are starting to cloud their judgment. So turn your logger on, and while you're auditing your intentions, try to discover theirs. And when you have found an exception, either in yourself or on the other side, try to make it safe. Approach the conversation with empathy. Realize that for everyone, especially at this stage of our lives, we have been through some shit. Can I say that word?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. We have been through, every person you meet has had a lot of experiences, a lot of baggage. So sometimes when someone reacts strongly, it's not necessarily you that has triggered them. It's just that, for example, I was working for a job before I started the company, and I had a manager that I really struggled talking to. I don't know what the problem was. To this day, I don't. But I told a friend, and they were saying, well, it's probably because you're really, really young and she's really old. And I'm like, well, why would that make a difference? But that once a friend suggested that to me, it's what shaded every other conversation that we had. Like, of course we're having a difficult conversation, and it seems like every conversation we're having, either I'm breaking down crying because I feel like I'm letting you down, or you're really mad at me and I don't understand why. And I think if I would have found this book around that time, I would have been able to use this process to get back to a proper conversation. But just give people a little bit of a pause, We've all been through a lot of stuff, and sometimes when someone is really upset with you, it's not because of what you did, it's because of everything they've gone through. I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we talked about how we're looking for when conversations are starting to derail. Not like this talk. Hopefully I haven't derailed yet. How can you bring the conversation back to a productive dialogue? Make it safe. What is safety means? Again, psychological safety. I got more notes here. In this context, psychological safety means that everyone feels like they can contribute. In order to allow everyone to be heard, you need to break down the exceptions that people are having that says, well, I can't contribute to this conversation because no one will listen. Here we go. So, step one, step out of the conversation that you're having. If someone feels unsafe and it's clear that they're going to silence or violence, step out of the conversation and address that. Address safety, saying, have I said something wrong to make you clam up here? I'm really interested in your feedback. I really value your opinion. Could you please? Well, what do you think about what's been said so far? Diagnose which safety condition has been violated. Mutual respect, like the situation I had with my former boss, where I wasn't quite sure if she valued my contributions, or if perhaps maybe I have done something to make her think that I think poorly of her. I tried to say over and over again that I really appreciated, working for her and things like that. One of these days I'm going to figure this one out. Apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. 2 conditions that may have violated safety. Mutual respect, but also mutual purpose. 2 rational people can have completely separate goals, objectives. That's totally fine. But if you're working together on a project, it's almost assumed that that project has a goal. And as long as everyone shares that goal, then we can work together. But if, for example, when I was working for a web development company before that job, they needed to remake the company website. But the engineering department had a plan, and the marketing department had a plan, and they were absolutely at war. They would not share the details of their plans because that would give the other side ammunition to go to the big boss and say why that plan is bad and they should not be in charge of this project. You should let the other side be in charge of this project and drive all the project management. I saw those two heads of departments battle for a good 3 months without getting anything done. Because one would be given the project and do a little work, and then, the other side would say, well, you're not doing a very good job, you should let me have it. And then, why does everything have to be so political in that way? If they could just get together and say, well, the goal is to make a new website, and I have goals, and you have goals, let's find where there are conflicts and let's talk them through like adults. Oftentimes, you would hope that people have the ability to act like adults and just talk through those things, but there are so many examples that you could probably point out in your life, but that was not the case. I'm sorry for another aside. Do you ever remember the moment in your life when you were a kid and you realized that adults aren't mature? Like, when I was growing up, I could tell that, my mom and my dad, that they would have disagreements and they would work through things, but I just assumed that they would, not do the same things that I did when I was on the playground and I wanted that toy and another kid was using that toy and just say, well, I want it. And it was just really shocking to me the day where I realized that, adults are just like children sometimes. That we hope that we're not that level of immaturity sometimes, but it is shocking because do we ever really grow up? And perhaps that's another way to think of this too. If you're working with someone and you're really having a difficult time, giving them the benefit of the doubt, try to imagine them as a toddler. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I just mean that we all, like I said, we all have this baggage that we carry with us, and we all react to certain things. And when you see a toddler misbehaving in a store, you're not like, well, that's just the worst person in the world. They have no idea what they're doing here, and obviously they are not fit to lead because they're a freaking toddler. I think there's a movie, Boss Baby, coming out that kind of runs on this theme. We have empathy for toddlers, that perhaps they're just driven by the reptilian brain. They're just doing things, and if someone could just work with them and get them through this process, they would be a functioning human being, which is what we try to do with toddlers. We try to, over coaching, mentoring, working with them, we try to make them work better in society. But why do we stop that with other human beings? And we so care deeply about our teammates, our bosses, or maybe people that we manage. Back on track. Sorry for the aside. So we talked about stepping out of the conversation, addressing safety, stepping back in order so that when people feel safe to contribute, you can keep going. We talked about diagnosing what safety condition has been violated, mutual respect or mutual purpose. But also, if you discover that you have violated mutual respect, apologize where appropriate, especially if that wasn't your intent. If that was your intent, perhaps you should still apologize, because it's not nice to be, it's not nice. Come on. Use contrasting to fix any misunderstanding. Perhaps someone has listened to you and gathered all the details, but they connected a few more dots and now they misunderstand what you're saying, or perhaps you're unclear. Use contrasting. Say, I don't mean to say that I spent an entire week on a project that you didn't authorize. What I meant to say was that I was investigating all the problems with the current process and try to see if there was something wrong that I was missing. And if there isn't a clear mutual purpose between you and the people you're talking to, create a mutual purpose. Like, we're all on the same team here. We're all working on this website. Why can't we find something that we agree on, and let's focus on that? You know, it's interesting. Google did a study in 2012 about what are the things that make great teams. And the number one thing they found was that if you have a meeting and you're supposed to give status, if your team members all spoke at the meeting at equal amounts, then they would work better. If anyone is dominating that conversation and not allowing other people to listen, like there's perhaps like a lead developer in the room, and they're the one that's just talking, everyone is just there to listen. Or like if a project manager decides, well, you have given me all the information, so now I'm going to reiterate all the information back to you. This is like a scrum meeting or something like that. Then people felt like they weren't an equal member of that meeting. And in fact, mutual respect was violated. So there's actually some weight behind this concept that that if you foster an environment of mutual respect among your team members, if you make sure that you maintain psychological safety, your teams will function better. Looking at this now, I probably should put this slide ahead of time, because here is where I'm talking about mutual respect and mutual purpose. And I just want to reiterate here that if you don't have mutual respect, then there's very little hope that you're going to have a productive conversation. And if you do have mutual purpose, if you don't have mutual purpose, then there's a good chance that, yeah, you may be working together, but pulling the project into different directions. And if you need a visual guide in order to remember these terms a little bit better, I found these. I tried to find the shoulder handshake, but I couldn't find a good one. And whenever I think of mutual purpose, I always think of the Powerpuff Girls, right? So yeah, it looks like I doubled up on this point. How do we make things safe again? Step out. Focus on repairing safety. Use contrasting to fix any misunderstanding. Apologize where appropriate. And discover or create a mutual purpose. Consider this. You have to give some constructive criticism to a fellow coworker. And you know they have a history of not accepting criticism well. So you already know that they're going to feel unsafe coming into this conversation, because after all, who are you to give them criticism? Or perhaps they react very emotionally to any kind of criticism. And I've certainly been the kind of person to react very emotionally to criticism in the past. So how would you make that condition safe? You let them know that you're not coming from a punitive perspective. You're not trying to tell them that they are a bad person. In fact, there are many things that they do that are really great. And that if we could just work together on fixing this one thing, then everything will be better. And in fact, perhaps you're the first person to come with this criticism, and perhaps there are other people that see it too, but you're coming from a place of empathy. You're not just barging in there and saying, we really should clean up your desk because you're a freaking slob. The goal with safety, if this helps, is to think about the entire knowledge that you and your team has as a shared pool of knowledge. And if everyone feels safe to contribute their knowledge to the shared pool of knowledge, then we all benefit. So, let's get into some meat. Master your stories. Sometimes a conversation is turned crucial because we think we have all the information, and we draw upon, and where we're taking those conclusions is not good. We have a limited set of facts, and because we have very advanced, complex brains, we can connect the dots and come to our own conclusions. So here's a bit of a bold claim, one that you might disagree with. But emotions don't just happen. They don't settle upon us like a fog. They're not like a module that is packaged up and installed in our brains. Others don't make you mad. You make you mad. You can create your own emotions. Certainly, there are many times when I've had to choose between reacting to the fight that my daughter and son is having into the backseat and just yelling at them, or just trying to talk them out of their fight and work through things. That was a choice. I felt mad. I felt frustrated, but I didn't choose to respond in a mad and frustrated way because I know that is not how I can get through to them. Once you create your emotions, you have two options. Act on your emotions, or be acted upon them, or be acted on by them. That is, when you're dealing with strong emotions, you either have to find a way to master your emotions or be mastered by them. So, we've talked about turning on your logger. Let's talk about turning on your debugger. So you're already watching for cases where conversations can turn crucial. And oftentimes our reaction is to feel something and then act on that thing. Now, I want to grant you that I understand that we're not Vulcan. We're human. That looked a lot better because I'm losing the edge here. I didn't fix that. In order to not let the emotion cloud our judgment, we need to ask another series of questions to jumpstart our rational brain. Here is the path that our mind goes when we're dealing with stories, these clever stories that we tell ourselves. We see or hear something, we tell ourselves a story to rationalize those facts. And then we feel something based upon the story we have told ourselves, and then we act. It's not just feel or act, there's more to this. So we see the evidence, I just said that. So before you let this program run, put your debugger right there on tell a story. And analyze what are the inputs coming in and what are the outputs. Because if something else satisfies those inputs and provides a different output, well then, it's just using the same interface. And it might make you feel something different which might make you have a different action. So we need to kickstart our rational brain. Does everyone know where that episode of Star Trek this is? This is where Sarek dies. And this is the heartfelt goodbye Picard is telling Sarek. After Sarek has passed the huge amount of Vulcan emotions that he has been having pent up for his entire, well, I don't know, since the last Qumran or whatever it's called. And so whenever I saw this and I really felt the empathy of it. Kickstart your rational brain. When we act, let me just go back to here. When we act, I don't have the right notes now. I'm sorry, people. This will be better next time. When we act, we notice our behavior. We ask, am I in some form of silence or violence? Am I starting to play games with the situation? Am I starting to win? Get in touch with your feelings. What emotions are encouraging you to feel this way? Tell your story, analyze your stories. What story is creating these emotions? And get back to the facts. Avoid these 3 clever stories. It's not my fault. So, this also might be controversial, but I'm not talking about an external voice telling you that you're wrong because you think that it's not your fault. Don't imagine it that way. I'm talking about the voice inside your head, your conscience. You're the one that knows if you're starting to play the game, it's not my fault. Sure, I was a developer on the project and the project has gone the rails, but it's not my fault. I did everything I needed to do. Yeah, perhaps I didn't communicate very well with other team members, and perhaps I wasn't listening for when another team member needed help, and perhaps I really didn't care because I don't like them. Question yourself. If you're starting to tell the story to yourself, it's not my fault. Was there, what am I trying to say? That when you have this theme, you start telling yourself, well, the other person is bad. Wrong. They're dumb. And we're good. We're the one that's right. We're brilliant. Other people do bad and stupid things and should suffer the result. But in truth, there is such thing as an innocent victim. You can just be walking down the street and someone points a gun at you. That's an innocent victim. You did nothing. But that's, so what am I trying to say? So in this story, you're convincing yourself that you are a victim. Another clever story, it's all their fault. It's all your fault. This is a story where you're trying to tell that the person on the other side is the villain. They're doing these things, and there's no rational reason for them. They're just a bad person. And as a result, they should suffer the consequences. Third story. I didn't set my timer. How much time I got left?
7 minutes.
Okay. That there's nothing I can do, that the situation is hopeless. So in order to solve these stories, tell the rest of the story. Turn victims into actors. If you've noticed yourself telling the story that you're the victim, ask yourself, am I pretending not to notice my role in this situation? Again, this is an inner voice. You're the only one that knows this. It doesn't mean that you had malicious intent. Maybe you think about the series of events that led you to that story, and you can recall some evidence that you have made yourself forget that may have contributed to the situations. Oops. I saw it on my screen, but it's not there. turn villains into humans. When you find yourself telling yourself when you find yourself labeling a person as a villain, ask yourself, why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person be doing the thing that this person is doing? Because giving yourself a reason to deal with the other side as a human being will perhaps bring you to a different reaction than just burning them. And finally, when you find yourself that the situation is hopeless, remind yourself, what do I really want for me, for others, for this relationship? Kill the fool's choice that there's nothing you can do. There's just an unsolvable problem by either choosing, by asking yourself, what would I really do now if I wanted those things that I said that I want? Would you remain silent, or would you do something? So, that covers a few things. I did have one more thing I wanted to talk about. And I only have, how many minutes? 3 minutes? Let's do it. So, there's one more thing. State your path. STATE is an acronym. First of all, state your path. The most heated conversations need a lot of hand-holding. And in order to get through them, you need to state your path. Specifically, share your facts. Facts are the least offensive, most persuasive thing you can bring to the conversation. Perhaps, hopefully, they are the least controversial. Because this is the evidence that you've gathered up to this point. Tell your story. The story is unavoidable. You have facts. You're starting to react emotionally because of what those facts are telling you. But when you have to deal with that emotion, when you have to work through that emotion, be honest. Tell the person that you have the issue with, the person on the other side, about your story, but speak tentatively. Remember to look for safety conditions while you're telling your story. And also, be careful not to apologize where you don't mean to. Sometimes the facts say emotionally charged things. And if you're not trying to harm safety, if just the sheer facts are harming safety, don't apologize for them. This is not about being meek. This is not about filtering or diminishing the impact of your statement. This is about making it possible to make your statement so that it can be actually listened to and not be blocked out. Ask others for their paths. Encourage others to share both their facts and their stories about how they got to based upon those facts. It's about adding information to the shared pool of knowledge. If you can get more people contributing to that process, you can make better decisions. Talk tentatively. Share your facts and your story. And while you don't need to talk about your facts tentatively, be tentative about your story, because it's not a fact. It's a story that you've conjured in your brain, because we are very powerful, imaginative people. And to encourage testing. Here's my story, here are the facts that support it. It seems like, for example, the conversation I'm going to have with my wife when I get home. Yes, I damaged the bumper of our car, but no, I wasn't joyriding because I was just trying to park it and then I ran into the subway. That's a little truth. And, hopefully I'm the one that is up front and he doesn't have to I'm not running away from that conversation. She can just come to me and I'll tell her the story before she even asks. So to encourage testing, make it an honest, open invitation. Mean it. Honestly listen, and don't just queue up your next argument. There are other things. I only have 1 minute, right?
You have less than
Less than 3 minutes?
No, 0.
0 minutes?
Yeah, you're at -1.
We're overtime.
Allow me a conclusion. So I promised I would tell you the end of that crucial conversation that I had. So my crucial conversation, I was a novice with all this. I tried it. I gave it an honest shot. I told him that I found another position and that I was going to take it, and I was doing it because I was afraid that the mistakes that I could make working on this job could damage his family and his future prospects, and that I didn't want to be responsible for that. It was a difficult conversation, and I'll be honest with you, it didn't go well. But 2 years later, he met me at my new workplace, and we had a couple of drinks together, and he had finally come to terms with things that I had said, and we were able to pick up our relationship after that. So it's possible. It may not get the result that you want immediately, but it's an honest process, and if you approach it with empathy, you're going to get through it. Thank you.